Here at the Sacred Profane, we are challenging the restrictive beliefs from any and all and both and sides so that we can get outside of the patriarchal narrative, but we are also reimagining what a world could look like outside of patriarchy, because that's a really key thing that we have to be able to do. We have to know where we've been, how do we get out of where we've been, and where we're going. We might not know exactly how we're going to do any of this, but that's what we're going to explore through the history and the powerful myths that have gotten hidden either inside of patriarchy or prior to patriarchy, of the powerful women with very different voices than we see women showing up. Because there's women who show up as women who are autonomous outside of patriarchy, and then there's women who show up and are really just still voices for patriarchy. And I think you'll know the difference when you hear them. And we're gonna just do it differently here. We are gonna really look at how do we find those truly different voices. And they don't necessarily have to be females. They're just maybe more of a feminine perspective of life that's all about celebrating life and understanding that death is part of life. And how do we integrate that into our stories instead of being all about blow them up, shoot them down, war, hero, hero, hero? There's more to life. There's so much more to life. If any of this sounds interesting to you, if you are ready for a new path forward, if you're ready to explore what it means to be both sacred and profane souls embodied in a physical body, if you want to know how history is repeating itself, but you want to be part of the solution and you don't want to repeat itself, and you want to know how these really subliminal ways got programmed into your mind and programmed into your friend's mind and your family members' minds, and how we can imagine a new way forward using the power of story and myth. Any of that sounds interesting? Stay tuned. We have more, but make sure you click that little like, click that little subscribe. Make sure you share it with at least one of your friends, because then they'll share it and share it and they'll share it. And see, there's the evangelical in me. You just can't get her out. But yes, let's share this message that we are here and we are doing things differently. Let's jump into a little bit of what kind of taste you're going to get. Just a little teaser, please. If we learn the history of patriarchy through this lens that I've been fortunate enough to find, then we might be able to really understand how just subversive some of these thoughts that are programming all of us still, all of us, that keeps us fighting in this war of, left versus right, Democrats versus Republicans, evangelicals and Protestants and Catholics versus the liberals and the woke. Like, I feel like if people could see what I have seen and understanding how patriarchy just weaves these really invisible, beliefs that are actually lies into our psyche, then we can start to peel those out of our own psyche and learn how to help other people peel those out of their psyche so that they can see how they have gotten stuck in a lot of dogma that's not very helpful nor supporting the values and morals that they tout that they support. That's where my heart is. That is what I hope to do with my channel here, with my writing on Substack. But it's really going to be this beautiful blend of nonfiction history lessons with the own ideas between all the research and studying I've done and deconstructing not just my religious, but also my political beliefs. That was the last thing to fall away this last year, or last few months, actually. Yeah, so I've deconstructed a lot of all these different areas. I've read a lot of history. I've listened to a lot of people. It's just given me a different perspective on how to move forward with life and dream up how to move forward. So one of the biggest things I've realized in my journey is that when you know how things get started and maybe where your power is in that thing that you got started, in that system that started whatever it was, your marriage, your religion, your commitment to whatever it was, the cult, when you realize where your power was and where you handed over that power to that authority that was supposed to be that was trustworthy but wasn't, then you can start to take that power back and go a different way. You can start to create something new. here's your first history lesson. Patriarchy was not just created by men. And I don't believe that either men or women created patriarchy intentionally knowing that women, were going to be oppressed, that slaves were going to happen, that we were going to have what we have now. Like, that was not their intention. But it was, from what we can tell from the anthropological history, the socio-political history, a joint effort to create this political system because they thought it was going to be in their benefit. When I have shared that with women, it's like, whoosh, wow, there's our power, women. When we realized that we helped create and started to subjugate and indoctrinate ourselves, I mean, not ourselves, but you know what I'm saying, throughout the 6,000 years of patriarchy has been going on, then we can start to take our power back and we can start to be like, okay, we started this thing. What's next? How do we dream up something new? And that's what I want to do on this channel, between the history lessons on the nonfiction side, but also the fiction stories that I'm writing. My first book here, which might be a series. It might be a couple workbooks along with it to get the nonfiction side in. Reimagining, if you will, who is the Christ? And bringing in a lot of not feminism that we've known, because a lot of feminism has just been women, going out there and saying, I can do what men can do, instead of going out there and saying, I can see what men can do, but I want to do something that I want to do because this is true to my feminine nature. This is true to who I am as a feminine soul. When we bring those things back into the mix, then the world opens up. So this book I'm writing is reimagining who the Christ is. It's got Mary Magdalene, Jesus, and then two more characters that we trace throughout. Well, I don't want to give you too much. We trace one of those characters throughout history, and then the other character shows back up, let's just say basically reincarnated, which I don't necessarily believe in, so don't get hooked up on that, but this is fiction, and I got to do some fictional things to make all of this work. It's just reimagining, like in the process of learning the history of this person we think Jesus is, what we made him up to be versus the actual historical data we most likely can know about him, realize that history is just this mirage. Like, it's moving and shaping as we find out new information, as our tools get better, as we discover more ancient scripts and get to see history from not just, people that won patriarchy's point of view, but from more, from the Gnostics, from the mystics, from women. When we get to see history from all of that and start to meld it together, then we can play with it and we can play with what we're believing. If we can play with what we thought we knew to make something new out of that, to reset our cultural stories that transmit through those cultural stories into our very DNA, truths that we hold to in order to keep society as it is. The gender roles, the sex roles, the work roles, all of that. Like, that's all put into our stories that we have been telling each other for 6,000 years. It's time for some new stories, don't you think? So that's what I want to do with the fiction side of my work here. I'm going to be sharing my story of how I moved from not a Christian, but born and raised a Republican in the red states of Midwest, to becoming a very fundamentalist right-wing Tea Partier who believed Obama was the Antichrist in 2008, to now voting for Obama in 2012, to not voting for the next 10 years, no, 12 years, to finally waking up and realizing, like, no, I need to be actively involved. Like, politics are life and I can't separate those. So this channel is going to get into all of it. Like, it's going to get into history, politics, religion, because we're embodied souls that live together as social creatures, and we need the politics in order to guide that social experiment that we're doing. In my book, we can't separate it. And if you separate it, that's part of why we've gotten into where we are. Like, I keep hearing people say, gone are the days where people just hid this stuff. And somebody on TikTok actually called me out on that because I said that, which wasn't really what I meant. I meant that should not be the way we do things anymore. It should never have been the way we do things, because when we don't talk about things, then we think we're okay, but it's all those things hidden in the closet that are actually just being exposed now, finally, after 6,000 years of hiding this stuff in the closet. It's coming out to be seen, and we're seeing people's hearts, and it's really hard. It's thick, it's meaty and messy and chaos and needing to happen, but to happen in a way that is different than I see us doing, and that we've tried for the last 100 to 150 years with this side or that side, with the media. Like, we've got to figure out a way to do things differently. We've got to start talking about other options. That's the promise I have to you, or that I'm making to you, that yes, we're going to talk about politics and all the icky things in life, but I know we can do it from a different stance that doesn't have all of that heavy, weighty shit, that stuff that we've had for the last, I don't know, 25, 50 years as things have been building to this level. This is the kind of stuff that we're going to get into on this channel. We're going to talk again, both about the nonfiction side, the history, some different ideas on how we can use that history to maybe start crafting ways to move us forward. The fiction side is my way of helping us, dream of something bigger, dream of something new, dream of what life maybe would have looked like if we hadn't had patriarchy for the last 6,000 years, what this planet might have looked like if we hadn't had patriarchy for 6,000 years. So yeah, one more little recap on what I plan to use this YouTube station for. Talk about the history of patriarchy, how it's given me a different perspective so that I can see both and neither side, and actually outside of the box, to be able to have conversations with both sides. Being someone that's so far out of, just seem to always help people really have a different perspective than they've ever thought of before. And also to talk about my writing journey, my content creation journey. I am on my way to becoming monetized, so that's why I really want you to like, subscribe, and share this message so that people know that I'm here. I don't see a lot of middle-aged women who have left corporate America or decided not to go back to corporate America and pursue a content creation life and an author life. It's a little different, I should say, when you're in your midlife doing that. So I really hope to speak to other women that have come out of stuff that I've come out of, because we need your stories right now. We need your imagination, because it's not just imagination. Imagination is what created the culture we live in. And it's going to take really powerful amounts of imagination right now to create a new culture to get out of this one that we don't like. That's not honoring people, not kind, not empathetic, not doing the things that we want to do in the world. It's going to take powerful stories, whether they're nonfiction, creative nonfiction, or fiction. Hope you'll subscribe, like, and share this information. Make sure you go to my Substack to get the, almost weekly nonfiction pieces. I also release some of the poetic prose that's really deep, esoteric, spiritual, like making love to your soul. If that doesn't make sense, go read what I have. It's very mystical, like it would be in line with a lot of the mystics that have gone up through the ages. Really focused on how do I deepen my spiritual understanding and my spiritual self versus, what my beliefs, like challenging my beliefs in order to do that. All right, y'all, so much love. See you next time. Bye-bye.